take us off.
Okay.
You want to come sit closer to me so you don't have to keep rotating it so much. Go for it.
Okay, and welcome back with Mortgage Talk with loan originator Robert Bulmer, NMLS number 322918, and myself, Bobby Bulmer, NMLS number 2060902. And we're back with Mr. Raymond Aquino, our special guest from last week, and he's here to talk about all the stuff that's involved with looking at rentals and acquiring properties and everything that goes in with that.
Yeah, yes, Raymond and I we're good friends now after our relationship and has developed. We've been talking about what we're going to get into. Real quick, realtor tips of the week. Buyers agents, don't predict anything. If you have a buyer willing to buy and they want to put a certain offer in, because remember, really the benefit of the buyer right now is seller credits to help cover certain closing costs and interest rate buy downs with buying. So that is a huge advantage for buyers. So if we're going to keep these buyers happy, they need these seller credits. So Raymond, why don't you get us going, and what have you thought about?
Well, good morning, everyone. Good to be back. Thank you guys very much. Well, I was last night actually. I was thinking about what I was going to talk about today, and Robert, I really wanted to talk about how you helped me structure my foundation so I can build on that and buy more properties as I go. So I remember in 2019, I came to you and I told you, Robert, I have the desire to buy another property. And you told me, okay, let's go over your numbers. So we actually went over what I was paying on at the house in Adelanto, our primary residence at that time as well, what our payment was, our interest rate was, and you said, you're not going to qualify like this. Ray, I'm going to help you out. Give me at least a day to restructure everything, and I'll get back to you, right? Remember that, Robert?
Yes, and exactly that. Bobby, we wanted to talk about and really get in. This is really what the show was designed for, was teaching you what it's about to buy real estate. Where does it start? So let's recap real quick with Raymond and his wife, Alma. They were both working and they knew, hey, we should buy a house to live in. This is before they met each other. Raymond's like, hey, if I'm going to pay rent, I'd rather pay rent to be paying a debt off and owning the home and having a certain amount of control. Bobby, we talk about the three qualifying factors, of buying a house, and one house leads to another. Why don't you quickly go over those three qualifying factors, and then we'll recap where Raymond's at, what we covered last week, and kind of get into the nitty-gritty.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, the three qualifying factors, and we covered them, I believe, in our first episode that we did. The first one, which is the easiest one, that's why we do it, number one, is credit. Okay, everybody knows their credit scores. Even if you use Credit Karma or one of the apps that aren't too accurate, you'd still get a pretty decent idea of what your credit score is. Especially today, you could look at it from your phone, right? The second qualifying factor that we go over is income, or how much income can we prove. It's all about how much can we legally prove with our second qualifying factor. Okay, and then our third qualifying factor was down payment and closing costs. In other words, how much money do you come to the table with in a transaction?
Yeah, and really the closing cost involved, we call it hard cost. These are certain costs you're going to have no matter who's going to do your loan as a home buyer. So everything, each of those three categories, there's rabbit holes to go into. But let's recap. We heard Raymond's amazing story of overcoming. Everybody goes through. That's what we have a lot in common. But he kept working, and those three factors came into play, and he bought the house he wanted to live in Adelanto. We refer to that as rental number one in the future. He purchased that. I did a little homework around 2014.
Yes, 2014, Robert. Correct.
I wasn't even 18 at that time.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Well, I think you asked a good question last week.
Absolutely.
You go, what did you say, Raymond? What are you looking for? How do you do it? What's the equation?
Yeah.
And the equation is, really taking it day by day, and doing what you got to do.
So for all the listeners out there, you really have to get your ducks in a row so you can get qualified by the lenders, correct? So like they mentioned, Bobby mentioned, you have to qualify. You have your credit score. You have to get your credit score. If you want to get the best interest rates, have your credit score 740 and up to really take advantage of those, the better interest rates. Not only that, you have to have your income to debt ratio. You have to make sure that is in control, because if you have too much debt, then you're definitely not going to get qualified by the lender. You're not going to be able to make that house payment, essentially, right? And not only that, third, you're going to have your savings. You have to have the down payment, and you have to have enough money for closing costs. And when you get to this level, you're going to have reserves for
Yes.
every property that you buy at this point and going forward. Go ahead.
So recapping. Do you have any questions so far?
No, but just in case anybody doesn't know what reserves are in the bank, that's just a set amount of money you have. Like you have a 6-month reserve. You have 6 months of that house payment in the bank, just in case you don't get a positive net rent.
Yes. Your reserves definitely come into play, and in any situation, make you look better. So when we have reserves, extra money in the bank, it really makes you look better. And to anybody loaning anybody money, if you knew that they had extra savings to where if something happened, they can actually make the payment for 3, 6, 9. You get the trend every 3 up to 12 months. So having those 3, 6, 9, 12 months reserves is gonna obviously allow you to qualify even if you don't have those super high scores in certain situations. But we're getting into building up investment properties. And let's recap real quick. Why is Raymond one of our first guests? Well, he comes from a hard-working family. He's a hard worker, and still with his level of wealth, still is working with his W-2, what we call a W-2 work job, where he puts in 14 plus hours a day. He owns a restaurant, and guess what, guys? He has up to 14 units. Since late 2019, Raymond has built up to where he is self-managing up to 14 units. And that's what this whole thing is about, is how did he get to that point? How did he get to where we talk about real estate? Well, his level right now, last show, we talked about his security. Well, the security blanket he's built is with the real estate. The whole reason was that foundation, those roots, to where, if I lose my job, if the restaurant doesn't perform, well, guess what? We have the biggest foundation in American history, which is real estate. How us regular, hardworking Joes, I don't care what your background is, how 80% of wealth is built through some kind of real estate for us hardworking people. And this is why we wanted to break it down a little more time. Hey guys, you guys are welcome to call me at 760-669-7813. My NMLS number is 322918. Bobby Bulmer, also, we're a team. You can also get a hold of him at 760-669-7813. His NMLS number is 2060902. Raymond, why don't you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, your YouTube channel? I know you're going to be on here because we have a lot to cover. Raymond's going to be on here for a few shows because, again, we want to see, like Bobby asked, how'd you get there?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Working 14 hours a day,
busting my
going through a divorce
Yes.
and a bankruptcy and having to start from scratch. I know how that is.
Yes.
Bobby, you know where you're at. You're 20 years old. The sky's the limit.
Yep.
And I know you want it yesterday, but you
Yeah.
also know the rules, and you're still building.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Raymond, tell us where they can get a hold of you and all what you're doing right now with your.
So I have a YouTube channel that I created this year called Investing in Rentals. I found my passion, and the content that I put out is basically motivating and influencing people on educating themselves to buy rental properties, build a business, and to try to get out of that rat race. The rat race I call our W-2 jobs, right? Where we're on that hamster wheel every single day, getting it up, going to go to work, paying the bills. To me, that's the rat race. And honestly, the content that I put out is basically influencing people and motivating everyone to think outside the box and educate themselves in buying cash flowing assets so that we can get out of that rat race, guys.
Yeah, Raymond's going to be a realtor soon too. I've been encouraging him for a long time. He's
Yes.
definitely he's a big influence in the high desert. So he will be licensed as a realtor in the future. So really, kind of to recap, let's get into it. That's what I wanted to say. Not only out of those 14 units, I mean, you name it. What we get calls on, what people want to do, current homeowners, people who strive to be homeowners. He's even built an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, subdivided, and did that with cash. Now, he didn't start this way, as we know. He did not start this way with having the buying power, having the reserves. So we'll get into certain qualifying factors, but let's recap. Go ahead.
So before we get into recapping, I just want people to know that if you are interested in developing a business with rental properties, you're going to have to restructure from the beginning. If you haven't talked to a lender, such as Robert, he really helped me structure my finances. I want to mention that, Robert, because if it wasn't for you telling me, Ray, you have to restructure all your debts in order to continue to qualify for loans to buy your future rentals. So,
I think I have a very unique perspective. I came born down the hill in Fontana, born and raised, single mother, loved my father, and let me tell you, I didn't even know what a home loan was. I got thrown in this business at 20 years old. They said, sit next to this guy. He was the top producer. We had to move to Washington State because you didn't need a license to quote a rate at the time, back in 1998. So we talked about simple interest. I feel I have a unique perspective. I've lived through a lot of this, and it's understanding simple interest, right, Bobby? That simple interest. I was watching a lot of people compare, and you can't put a mortgage or simple interest on the same table as a revolving credit card or certain other things because of the way it works. Now, where I got my perspective was consolidating. Back then, they did a loan called the 125 second mortgage. Values were low in California, rates were really high in 98, and they were loaning second mortgages 25% more than the value. Why would somebody do that? Well, because simple interest. When you're paying off bills, we talked about it, it made sense to put one loan in simple interest, regardless of what the rate was, and save anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 second mortgage. Of course, it made sense when you can save, $100 to $1,000 a month and be in position to pay the debt off in an eighth of the time you would trying to start from the lowest and work your way up. The advantage of a homeowner is you have a plan to be debt free, which we're all about. But let's put a 5.0 on it and structure the debt to where if you're going to make those sacrifices, your net money is going to work better for you. And that's exactly what we were when I seen Raymond's situation, and it was really changing Raymond's mindset. he came to me, wanted these rentals and everything like that, but even with, it was very difficult, if not, we did not even qualify. Why? Because he talked about the debt ratio. His debt was structured with, they did great. He had his house, his wife had her, Alma. I'm allowed to say, yeah, we're not saying that, but Alma had her house, and we'll see how her paid off house took him to the next level.
Yes.
Well, they got together, they bought their home, and then now he knew, okay, I need a rental. And he was traditional, don't touch nothing and all that, and let's get a rental and go from there. Well, I couldn't qualify him. I had to save him really over $1,100 a month, make it easier to manage, and put some serious money in the bank so he can take it to the next level. Because I wasn't just thinking about his, we call it rental number 3. Remember, house, primary residence, that's the house they bought together after they met, and they both each had a house coming to the table, which Raymond's we're calling rental number 1, because that's the first one he started. He restructured that. Alma's rental number 2, and they bought a rental number 3 together.
That was the one September, the end of September in 2019, right, Robert?
Correct.
And that's where I needed Robert's help. Robert, help me, please. Right. So.
Yes. So that's exactly it. Did we touch her paid off home? No.
No.
I saw his current debt and said we had to do, but he already had found the house. You already needed.
Yes.
So we had to start 4 transactions at once.
4 transactions, which
There were
was
literally
tough.
4 mortgages going at once. So what was that? So first of all, we started with the primary residence. Why did we start with the primary? This is when you want to take notes. Primary residence, house you're going to live in, you get the best deal. Right?
Yes,
That makes
absolutely.
sense?
You get the best interest rates.
You get the best interest rates, you get the cheapest down payments.
Right.
Why? Because in America, we encourage home ownership. And you know, and to live, you know, primary residence, you get the better deal. So and you can get most cash out. It's the cheapest money. So why did we start with the primary residence? Is because I can get the most cash out with the cheapest interest rate at the time, and pay off all his debt and give him access to a lot of money.
Okay, so yeah, if I remember correctly, we're doing 2 refinances, a HELOC, and a new purchase, right? Those were the 4 loans that we were working on. So the primary home, we were going to refinance that into a HELOC.
No, the primary loan, we call it a combo.
Combo, okay.
And
There
we're
you go.
going
Thank
over
you.
this because we've already done it for his scenario, his situation. The combo allows me to use a HELOC like a tool. So that was that's 2 loans closing at the same time. When we did with Raymond's scenario at that time back in 2019. That was 2 transactions. His house that he owned in Atlanta, rental number 1, interest rate was just way too high. We didn't get much cash out on that, but the interest rate was way too high, and there was a huge savings on getting the going rate, doing what we had to do at the time. And then the 4th loan was the new purchase on the rental.
Yes.
And he didn't want to lose out on that, so we had to get everything going at once and close them all in the right 1, 2, 3, 4, all like next day, and get them all going. So that once we had done that, because once you save somebody $1,100 a month, you could now afford more.
Let me get into that, into the thick of it, right? As Bobby says, the way he saved me $1,100 a month was I had to pay off one of my vehicles, right? I had to pay off any debt that I had. Not only that, bringing down the house payment of the first rental, which is the one in Adelanto, we brought that down about, what was it, $500 a month?
Yeah, it was, all combined. And remember, all Raymond saw was the closing costs on every transaction. When I first said this is
Oh
what
my
we gotta
goodness.
do, Raymond, all he's looking at is, what?
How much was the closing cost?
Well, when you
On
average,
4 loans.
Yeah, on 4 loans. Now, mind you, Raymond's a long-term investor. He's like, I don't want to sell. I want to keep this and cash flow. I got time on my side. I'm building a legacy. Okay, so when what do we always say on this show, or we've been saying as it started? Interest rates affect payment more than balance.
Yes.
For example, we talk about what's happened with rates in the markets and how people have lost their buying power since rates have went up. Well, somebody who qualified for 500,000 and that was their max price now to earlier in the year, now today is only at under 400,000. And depending on the situation, maybe even down to even 350. So people have lost over $100,000 in buying power, and we know the prices haven't dropped that much. They are leveling out. Well, in California, we just have, it's a housing crisis. We need more houses. There's a lot of reasons for that, but bottom line is, we're not going to really see at this point. You have to. The best advice I can give you since 1998 is the getting's good. Get while you can get it. When is the best time to buy? Whenever you can pull it off. One thing will lead to another. Answering Bobby's question, once you get that first house to live in, and you're grinding, and you're working, one's going to lead to another.
Absolutely, Robert. I agree.
So, again, we have Raymond here and Bobby. You have something?
Yeah, I want to break down interest rate affects payment more than balance. That is so true. It's not even funny. And what that means is focusing more money towards that interest rate with the buy down is going to affect your house payment more than putting it towards a down payment.
Exactly, Bobby, and that's what we can't get very specific in programs or rates. We're being very general until we talk to somebody specifically. But there's a lot of programs coming out. If we were to talk programs where the seller, it's all about, we talk about seller credits. The seller could help you get the seller credits is what it's all about. That's when you're going to be able to have more ability with structuring your loan. So because choosing the right rate. I can tell you this about rates. Everybody's heard the old phrase, I gotta say this, rates change every day. You have to lock in that rate. I ask everybody that for years, and everybody's heard about that. But nobody really knows what it means. What do you mean? Interest rates themselves aren't changing every day, so what's changing? Does it change the fact that an interest rate is what it is? Next to each interest rate, and what are we locking in? What is this locking in for 30 days or whatnot? Well, next to each interest rate, think of a range of rates from a lowest rate to the highest rate available. And think of every interest rate in between, every 0.125, every eighth of a percent. And think of that lowest to highest and everything in between. There's a market price next to each rate. And it's those prices that get better or worse, which could affect what you choose. The anti-steering regulation, the anti-steering law that came into effect after the big '08 crash that put us all on basically a set amount where we can't make money or have any financial interest in the rate or fees on a home loan. Well, the flip side to that anti-steering law, and Raymond's heard this many a time, is the burden of choosing the rate and is on the borrower. Because I get the same salaried commission or the same amount that I have contracted with our company, regardless of the rate you choose. So that's why we talk about long-term, short-term investor. Well, if Raymond's coming to me flipping a house and wanting to fix it up and sell it, am I going to go, hey, should we go with the lowest rate and the maximum buy down? Probably not.
So let me hit on that, Robert. Anyone out there listening, if you have to decide what you want to do. Do you want to invest for the long term? Do you want to flip? What niche are you going to grab and take that full forward, right? So I know that I wanted to be a buy and hold investor, which is buy a property, renovate it if I have to, rent it out for the long term, and make sure that it cash flows at that point with the cash flow, right?
Very important term. Everybody write down cash flow.
Cash flow and your return on investment. Now, it's a really quick formula, right? The formula that I use really quick to identify what my return on investment will be is simple. You figure out what the market you're investing in, the rental surveys, how much does a 3-bedroom, 2-bath go for? And then you find the property, okay, whatever the cost of the property is, if you're gonna put 20% down, plus any renovation costs you're gonna do, and closing costs as well. So you're gonna add up all your capital involved to buy that property, renovate it, and rent it out, okay? Now, you're gonna get the monthly payment every month from that property, and you're going to subtract that from the rents, and whatever's left over, deducting a 3%. I do an additional 3% for any expenses in the future, like a roof, a water tank, right? That's extra savings. And once I get that number, subtracting the mortgage payment from the rental payment, that's your cash flow. You multiply that by 12, and then you divide that by the total capital that you invested in that one property, which is going to be your down payments, your renovation costs, and your closing costs. And whatever your number that you get at that point, you multiply that by 100 to move the decimal over, and that will be your return on investment with the decimal in the correct place. And I look for no less than a 9% return on investment the first year. And
9%?
9%, yes.
Okay.
No less than 9%.
Bobby, you realize we just heard the magic equation you've been asking about?
That's it. That's it.
We are getting close to the end of our show. That's why we're gonna have a few shows on this, because it's so much to cover. It really, really is, and we're getting to the basics. You're hearing right from the person who's built it from the ground up. And you're hearing right from him, and we are a team. We all of us, even Raymond, because when you do stuff like this, you do build a team. You know, we're all a team, and
Absolutely.
we've grown into really good friends. You can definitely get a hold of us at 760-669-7813. Bobby and I are on call. You will be able to get more in depth, and that's 760-669-7813. Our NMLS number is -322918. Bobby's is 206-0902. Why don't you tell everybody about the restaurant, where you can go to your YouTube channel, go to our YouTube channel, Mortgage Talk. We're posting all these videos up every other, they are behind from we're putting the previous weeks up. But Raymond, close us out and tell us where we can get a hold of you and where we can find your videos, and obviously go to your delicious, amazing restaurant.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much, guys, for all that kindness. So, Springhouse Restaurant is located at 16441 Main Street, Hesperia, California, 92345. Our phone number is 760-949-2441. If you guys come over Thanksgiving Day, we have a lot of specials going on. I've been posting it all over Facebook, so come on over and enjoy a great meal, guys.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes.
During the COVID, they did a lot of food deliveries for the seniors. Very amazing. They were just in the community. Big shout out. So, sorry, Raymond, go ahead. I just want everybody to know they do help out a lot of seniors.
Oh, thank you, Robert, for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, so in the midst of COVID, the county actually contacted us and asked us if we wanted to do lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the senior citizens that would qualify with their programs. And we did. You know what? That was such a huge blessing for us. And all I got to say is thank you, God, for giving us that opportunity and for helping us through the rough times of COVID. And that's it.
What's your YouTube channel called?
Investing in Rentals. I found my passion. You can find me on Instagram at Ray Aquino. And on Instagram, yes, also.
And Bobby's developing our YouTube channel real nicely, Mortgage Talk. I think it's called Mortgage Talk Podcast right now.
Love it.
Guys, give us a call, 760-669-7813. It's going to get exciting because they have their 2 homes, the home they live in, bought their first rental. Then we're going to use Alma's house, the paid off house, to get them their 2 unit where they actually help a senior. It is quite amazing how the rental number 4 came into play. So please tune in next week. 760, give us a call anytime, 760-669-7813. I think our time's up. So, thank you. Sorry, I didn't know.